Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Second Chronicles, chapter 10. Now, this is a shift. What's happening now is there's a shift in the nation. We went through this before, and we studied this in Second Kings, or actually First Kings. I'm sorry, where Solomon has now passed away, and so his son Rehoboam takes the throne. And what is kind of sad about this is that it is he didn't inherit his father's wisdom. So let's put it that way. All right, let's get into it. Actually, I'm going to try to get through several chapters here. So chapters 10 through 12. Because most of this we have read already. We're just reading from a different perspective. Chronicles is focusing mostly on the kings of Judah, with the focus on the bloodline of Jesus. Okay, chapter 10, verse 1 says, Then Rehoboam, this is Solomon's son, went to Shechem, for all of Israel had gone to Shechem to make him king. Now, remember David and Solomon. Actually, we can't even go back. Not Solomon, I meant to say Saul and David ruled over all of Israel. They were king over all of Israel. It says, when Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard about it, when Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard about it, for he was in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon's presence, Jeroboam returned to Egypt. Now, you have to kind of go to Kings to get the backstory of Jeroboam. Chronicles did not highlight or talk about Solomon's apostasy. But in his latter years, remember, this is where the 700 wives and 300 concubines came into play. And he turned to idolatry. He built pagan altars to all of his pagan wives. It caused him to turn. And at the time, he sought to kill Jeroboam, and that's why he said he fled to Egypt. Now, God had actually prophesied, sent a prophet to prophesy to Jeroboam that he was going to tear the kingdom and give Jeroboam 10 of the tribes, which, of course, became the northern tribes. And when Solomon found out about it, he tried to kill him, and that's why he ran to Egypt. So verse 3 says, So they summoned him. Then Jeroboam and all of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam. Your father made our yokes difficult. Therefore lighten your father's harsh service and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you forever. Now, this is one of the wisest advice he could have taken right here. And sadly, even today, you have wicked politicians that won't heed this simple thing. Make the burden. I live in the Chicago area, and I could tell you, working, in the government, it almost like, put it like this: most government officials do not care about the tax burden that they lay on the people. In other words, they could blow $5 billion. Their solution is raise the taxes. Okay, so that's just, that's what the sinful world we live in. You remember that there was a heavy taxation during the years of the building of the temple. There was heavy taxation also to support, Solomon's lavish, opulent lifestyle. They're saying, ease up on it. And they said, and the people will serve you. Rehoboam replied, verse 5, Return to me in 3 days. So the people left. Then King Rehoboam consulted with the elders who had served his father Solomon when he was alive, asking him, How do you advise me to respond to these people? Actually, so far, so good. But we already know the story. They replied, if you will be kind to this people and please them by speaking kind words to them, they will be your servants forever. Now that's what he should have kind of looked up. These people are going to serve you, but that's not the way he's going to take it. Verse 8. But he rejected the advice of the elders who had advised him, and he consulted with the young men who had grown up with him, the ones serving him. He asked them, what message do you advise we send back to these people who said to me, lighten the yoke of your father put on us? Then the young men who had grown up with him told him, this is what you should say to the people who said to you, your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter on us. This is what you should say to them. My little finger is thicker than my father's lions, not lions, but loins. Okay. Now therefore, my father burdened you with a heavy yoke, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will with barbed whips. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the third day, and just as the king had ordered, the king returned to me on the third day. And the king answered them harshly. King Rehoboam rejected the elders' advice and spoke to them according to the young men's advice, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to it. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will with barbed wire. Foolish, foolish, foolish. Foolish, foolish, foolish. The king, verse 15, the king did not listen to the people because the turn of events came from God in order that the Lord may carry out his word spoken through Ahijah, the Shilonite, to Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Now, this was in Kings. You see this. Now, it's kind of interesting, this here, when you see one, on the one hand, and you could actually say this, God actually uses the sinful nature of men to work his will. Okay? And think about this. Even with the prophecy, he is still giving them a chance. Jeroboam could have said, well, God, I have the prophecy. I have the prophecy. But yet, in a sense, he still was given a chance, and they still just kind of ignored it. Verse 16. When all of Israel saw that the king had not listened to them, the king the people answered the king, what portion do we have in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Israel, each man to your own tents. David, look after your own house now. So all of Israel went to their tent, but as for the Israelites living in the cities of Judea, Rehoboam reigned over them. And the king Rehoboam sent Hadoram, who was in charge of the forced labors, but the Israelites stoned him to death. However, King Rehoboam managed to get in his chariot and flee to Jerusalem, and Israel is in rebellion against the house of David until this day. Now again, remember I said you see this term until this day. It's very interesting since the timing of this writing here, the section of it is obviously before the great Babylonian exile. All right, chapter 11. When Rehoboam arrived at Jerusalem, he mobilized the house of Judah and Benjamin, 180,000 choice warriors, to fight against Israel to restore and reign Rehoboam. But the word of the Lord came to Shimei, the man of God, say to Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, to all of Israel in Judah and Benjamites, and to the rest of the people, this is what the Lord says: you are not to march up and fight against your brothers. Each of you must return home, for this incident has come from me. So they listened to what the Lord said and turned back from going against Jeroboam. The foolish thing here, or the sad thing, is why didn't he seek the counsel of God as his grandfather at the very least did, and to a certain point his father? He listens now. Think about that. He listens now, but That's the sad thing right now. Had he listened to wise counsel before, he would have reigned over all of Israel. Verse 5, Rehoboam stayed in Jerusalem, and he fortified the cities in Judah. He built up Bethlehem, Etam, Tekoa, Bethzer, Sokah, Adullam, Gath, Mezrah, Zip, Adoram, Lachish, Azekah, Zorah, Ajalon, and Hebron, which are fortified cities in Judah and Benjamin. And again, yes, I realize I butchered probably most of those pronunciations. Verse 11, he strengthened their fortifications and put leaders in them with food, would supply the food, oil, and wine. He also put large shields and spears in each and every city to make them very strong. So Judah and Benjamin were his. So two of the kingdoms, and then the northern kingdoms, which became eventually their capital would be Samaria. Like I say, the sad point is that he could have ruled over all of Israel. Verse 13, the priests and Levites from all the regions throughout Israel took their stand with Rehoboam. The Levites left their pasture lands and the possessions and went to Judah and Jerusalem because Jeroboam and his sons refused to let them serve as priests of Yahweh. Now we'll get a little more into Jeroboam and his wicked sin, but one of the reasons, because Jeroboam was a very, very, very extremely wicked man, and he actually set up a worse sin. He set up two calves so that the people would not go to Jerusalem. His thought was so that they would not reunite under Rehoboam. Verse 15. Jeroboam appointed his own priests for the high places, the goat demons, the golden calves he had made. Those from every tribe of Israel who had determined in their hearts to seek Yahweh their God followed the Levites to Jerusalem to sacrifice to Yahweh, the God of their ancestors. So we're seeing this again, complete dividing of the nation. Verse 17, so they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and supported Rehoboam, son of Solomon, for 3 years because they walked in the way of David and Solomon for 3 years. Rehoboam married Mahalat, daughter of David's son Jeremoth, and of Abihail, daughter of Jesse, son of Eliab. She bore him sons, Jerus, Shemiah, and Zaham, after he married Micah, daughter of Absalom. She bore Abijah, Attai, Ziza, and Shelemith to him. Rehoboam loved Micah's daughter of Absalom more than all his wives and concubines. He acquired 18 wives and 60 concubines, and was fathered 28 sons and 60 daughters. Not quite like much his father, however. Rehoboam appointed Abijah, son of Micah, as chief leader among his brothers, intending to make him king. Rehoboam also showed discernment by dispersing some of his sons to all of the regions of Judah and Benjamin and to all the fortified cities. He gave them plenty of provisions and sought many wives for them. Now again, some of this is wise. It's just a shame that he did not do it before. Chapter 12, verse 1. When Rehoboam had established his sovereignty and royal power, he abandoned the law of the Lord. Now here we go. And we're going to see this, of course, from here throughout to the Babylonian exile. He said, because they were unfaithful to the Lord, in the 5th year the king Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, went to war against Jerusalem with 1,200 chariots, 60,000 cavalrymen, and countless people who came with him from Egypt, Libyans, Sulkim, and the Cushites. And he captured the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. Then Shemaiah the prophet went to Rehoboam and the leaders of Judah who were gathered at Jerusalem, because Shishak had said to them, "This is what the Lord said, you have abandoned me, therefore I have abandoned you into the hand of Shishak." So the leaders of Israel and the king humbled themselves and said, "Yahweh is righteous." Now, one of the most, again, one of the most, I think, right here, this statement is always kind of overshadowed by, again, people just not reading scripture. So when they say that God is a God of wrath in the Old Testament, well, he's a God of wrath because of verse 6, or the opposite of verse 6, that people do not humble themselves. Now, even in this, it took this great humiliation and great defeat. But notice what happens when they humble themselves. Verse 7. When the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the Lord's message came to Shemaiah, and they have humbled themselves. I will not destroy them, but will grant them a little deliverance. My wrath will not be poured out on Jerusalem through Shishak. However, they will become his servants, so that they may recognize the difference between serving me and serving the kingdoms of other lands. So King Shishak of Egypt went to war against Jerusalem. He seized the treasuries of the Lord's temple and the treasuries of the royal palace. He took everything. He took the gold shield and that Solomon had made. King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place and committed them to the care of the captains of the royal escorts who guarded the entrance of the king's palace. Whenever the king entered the Lord's temple, the royal escorts would carry the shields and take them back to the royal escort armory. When Rehoboam humbled himself, the Lord's anger turned away from him and did not destroy him completely. Besides that, conditions were good in Judah. So again, never underestimate humbling yourself before God. But they didn't. That's the sad point there. They just did not. All right. Verse 13. King Rehoboam established his royal power in Jerusalem. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen. From all the tribes Israel had put in his name. Rehoboam's mother name was Naamah, the Ammonite, and Rehoboam did what was evil, but he did not determine in it. Okay, let me go back with this. Verse 14. Rehoboam did what was evil because he did not determine in his heart to seek the Lord. I'm going to come back to that, close with that, because again, think about that statement there. The events of Rehoboam, verse 15, the events of Rehoboam's reign from beginning to end are written in the events of Shemaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer concerning genealogies. There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam throughout their reigns, and Rehoboam rested with his father and was buried in the city of David his son. Abijah became king in this place. Now I want to go back to verse 16, and I think this is kind of a lesson for us. Verse 14. Rehoboam did what was evil because he did not determine in his heart to seek the Lord. That's an amazing statement there. Because the reverse of that is that if you determine, now understand the context that we have to kind of put this in, that if you determine to seek the Lord, you will do what's right. And even in this time when the people were in sin, in other words, they wasn't born again, David, though imperfect, always sought to seek the Lord. And that's why he was labeled as the greatest godly king ever. The greatest godly king ever. In the New Testament, we're born of the Spirit. We're born of the Spirit. So we have a better covenant based upon better promises. We don't have the kind of excuses that they can have. At least, hey, I was born in sin, but we're born again. We still have the same fleshly struggles. But I think the key there is, have you determined in your heart to seek the Lord? Have you determined in your heart, Lord, I want to follow you? And we could go much more with that. All right, guys, look, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. Remember, all comments are welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Till next time, I'll see you in the next